Well, greetings, imagination connoisseurs and members of this, the Post-Geek Singularity community. It is New Year's Eve, right before 2020 begins. First of all, allow me to drink a small toast to all of you. Thank you for being devoted viewers, friends, supporters. Here's to you, and here's to the year we've spent together. My God. Once again, I'm your viceroy of verisimilitude, your master of fun and wonder, your existential Mr. Rogers, your knight of positivity, whatever else you guys have all called me this year. I love all these names. Bring them on. I am Meyer Burnett, and this is Robservations, Season 2, Episode 305. My God, did you ever think we would get here? And ladies and gentlemen, this is the last day that I can say this, but these chats have been brought to you by Lucky Tiger Men's Grooming Products for those men who want to look good and feel great. And if you go to their website at getluckytiger.com, you can still, I think, use the code PGS and get anything on their website for 20% off. How great is that? I want to thank Lucky Tiger for sponsoring this show for the last year. I very much appreciate that, and I've come to love your products. Well, anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I thought, of course, now that I'm coming at you from the Robservatory, and I'm thinking I'm getting a little bit more technically adept using new software, everything I learned from John Campia, trying to make these shows better, bigger, badder, better. I'm going to do something a little different, a little audio-visual stuff today. I figured, why not do a year-end show where I talk about some of my favorite movies over the last decade. Now, I know, you've heard me say, I cannot stand the idea. The reason Stanley Kubrick called 2001 and not 2000 A Space Odyssey is because 2001 is the beginning of the millennium. There was no year zero, so you count from 1 to 10. However, the way people count the decades now, it's 2010 to 2019. I hate that. I think it should be 21 to 30, but, that's not, I guess, how it works. So I've fallen, I've become what I beheld, and I am going to talk about my favorite movies of the last decade so we can bring the 2020s in style. Now, this is by no means comprehensive. These are by no means the best movies of the decade, but these are movies that I particularly love, and I watch them over and over and over and over again. So it's by no means comprehensive. It's by no means... they're just favorite films to me. That's what they are. And I figured I'd discuss them with you and show trailers just because I can. I think you might have enjoyed that. But first, let me play a little greeting that I was not able to play for episode number 300.
Imagination connoisseurs, Doug Root from Brooklyn, New York here. Just want to say congratulations to Rob on his 300th show. Happy holidays to everyone, and here's to a fantastic 2020. I hope there's a back issue of Omni under the tree for me. Anyway, I gotta keep typing. Rob, will catch you later. Congratulations again. Imagination connoisseurs.
Well, I want to thank Douglas Root for sending me that video. I mean, I'm getting more adept. I can start playing videos that you guys send me. I encourage you to do so. And let's hear it for Douglas for using or calling out Omni. How great is that? Well, to get this party started, we're going to go all the way back to 2010, a movie that, by God, one of the most rewatchable movies I've ever seen, a movie that blew me away, a movie that, looking back, wow, since the release of the film, and when the film came out, it was kind of a cause celeb at the time, because, of course, well, I'll just play it and you'll know why. Definitely one of my favorite films of the decade. I dearly love this movie.
Don't care if it hurts. something substantial in order to get the attention of the clubs.
Why?
Because they're exclusive and fun, and they lead to a better life.
People want to go on the internet and check out their friends, so why not build a website that offers that? Friends, pictures, profiles.
I'm talking about taking the entire social experience of college and putting it online.
Site got 2,200 hits within 2 hours.
22,000.
This idea is potentially worth millions of dollars.
Millions?
You stole our website.
They're saying we stole the Facebook.
I know what it says.
So did we?
$1 million isn't cool. You know what's cool? $1 billion.
You're going to get left behind. It's moving faster than any of us ever imagined it would.
Behind.
Let's sue him in federal court.
I can't wait to stand over your shoulder and watch you write us a check.
If you guys were the inventors of Facebook, you'd have invented Facebook.
Is there anything that you need to tell me?
Your actions could have permanently destroyed everything I've been working on.
We have been working on.
Did you like being a joke? Do you want to go back to that? Mark!
This is our time.
You're being accused of intentionally breaching security, violating copyrights, violating individual privacy.
Your best friend is suing you for $600 million.
As for the charges, I believe I deserve some recognition from this board.
I'm sorry?
Yes.
I don't understand.
Which part?
Wow. When this film came out in 2010, Facebook, at least Facebook for the general public, was only a few years old. And it's very funny, on the end of that trailer, it said, "You don't get to 500,000 friends without making a few enemies." How far we've come in the time since The Social Network has been released. All of, whether it's fake political ads, I mean, the landscape of social media has drastically changed since The Social Network came out. And it's amazing. Of course, David Fincher directed this film. And in David Fincher's style, Armie Hammer plays twin brothers in this movie. The technology, even with a movie like The Social Network, they couldn't even film on the campus of Harvard University, which is pretty interesting. And of course, this cast, I mean, you just read the cast: Jesse Eisenberg, Rooney Mara, Andrew Garfield. It's my God, it's incredible. Brenda Song, who, boy, is she cute. Justin Timberlake turns in an incredible performance. Even Dakota Johnson has a brief role in this film. I find this movie incredibly rewatchable. It's certainly one of David Fincher's best films. And my God, what has happened to our culture because of Facebook? Obviously, this was based on a book, The Accidental Billionaires. And it was interesting to see David Fincher, he of Seven and The Game, even Benjamin Button, to take on this material. I was dubious at first, but when I saw the film, man, I was blown away. It's the first time, I believe, Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross did the score. They've reteamed with Fincher on The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo after this, and it's what a great film this is. The acting is just superlative. And I think the storyline, whether it's fictionalized, and of course Aaron Sorkin's amazing script, and whether it's fictionalized or not, I think there's a great myth being told here. Maybe not a myth, but a legend of what modern America could be, or what we want modern America to be. And depending on whether or not it's exactly true, I think the movie still works. Just a wonderful, wonderful film. And I can't recommend this enough. Now, this next movie I saw 8 times in the theater. I recently saw Owen Gleiberman said this was one of the most overrated movies of the last decade. Owen Gleiberman, who I've always respected, you can go fuck yourself, buddy. That's all I can say, because you are wrong. And I say you can fuck yourself with the greatest love and enthusiasm and admiration for you. But why do you have to write an article about the most overrated movies of the decade? I mean, what does that do for anybody, dude? Come on, man. We should be celebrating the art of cinema. And what I love about this film It was the director leveraging some incredible success that he had with his previous movie. Basically, the idea is when you're a successful filmmaker at a studio, you do one for them and one for you. And his one for himself was a movie that the studio was, I think, bewildered by, and it became a monster, huge hit that, of course, the marketing department would run around and take full credit for, not because, well, the movie's amazing, but this is an amazing film, and I'll tell you something. We just celebrated the 50th anniversary of the James Bond movie, one of my favorite James Bond movies, on Her Majesty's Secret Service. And this film is just one big homage to that film. Ladies and gentlemen, Christopher Nolan's smoking hot science fiction thriller, Inception.
What's the most resilient parasite? An idea. A single idea from the human mind can build cities. An idea can transform the world and rewrite all the rules. Which is why I have to steal it.
Never recreate from your memory. Always imagine new places.
He's hiding something, and we need to find out what that is.
We gotta break out of here. Give him the kick. This was not a part of the plan! Wake me up! Wake me up!
I mean, come on. I mean, that put that in the vernacular. They use that in trailers for a long time to come. Again, a film, I'm always about authorship. And I think both Social Network and Inception are very much films that show the filmmaker's sensibilities writ large. And I don't know if Inception really holds together. And I maintain, even though Christopher Nolan has poo-pooed this idea, I've maintained that the entire movie is a dream. Again, I think that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that ultimately, this film is really about a man who's trying to get over the death of his wife, and all of this crazy idea of what Inception is and invading people's dreams. First of all, an irresistible premise. The Guy Hendricks Dias production design here, everything, the photography, Hans Zimmer's amazing score, his piece of music, Time, one of the pieces of soundtrack music that will transcend this decade, I'm sure. It's just a really phenomenally fun time at the movies. And whether or not it holds together, but this cast, I mean, my God, Tom Berenger is in this movie. Leave it to Christopher Nolan. I mean, he brings back Eric Roberts. Why not Tom Berenger? Tom Hardy, Ellen Page, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, of course, Leonardo DiCaprio is playing Cobb. It's just, Marion Cotillard is so great in this film. And Michael Caine, Lucas Haas. My God, both of these movies came out in 2010, and I think it really kicked off. If you go back and you look at the quality of films that we've received in the last 10 years, it's been pretty great. I mean, there are things I love that I didn't put on this list, such as The Avengers, because, I mean, who hasn't seen The Avengers? Really, who hasn't seen Inception? But I thought I'd kick off with these two films because why not? They're movies that I find myself going back to again and again. I learn something from them. I really enjoy them. And again, studio filmmaking at its finest. Two of my favorite directors working today, David Fincher and Christopher Nolan, showing us things that we haven't really seen before. And I think that Inception is a movie, it just doesn't get old. And it's so handsomely, Christopher Nolan's a very deliberate filmmaker, and his films are so handsome. And I dare say that he might not have made a more handsome film than Inception. Also, the visual effects, the cities fold in on each other. I mean, it's incredible. It's just a great film. Now, this next movie, it's a little divisive, I think. It comes from a filmmaker that we didn't hear from for decades, who was a mainstay of the 70s. He made two movies that are looked down upon as bona fide classics, and then he basically took 20 years off. Well, this was a movie that he made a couple years back that was recently re-released in a new version by Criterion on Blu-ray. And I liked this film when I first saw it, but the new Criterion Blu-ray version, it's a different cut of the movie. It's a longer version of the movie, but it's a movie that, for whatever reason, really stirs my soul. And it's a movie that goes from the dawn of creation all the way to the depths of the human heart, and it does so effortlessly. I'm, of course, talking about Terrence Malick's Tree of Life.
There are two ways through life. The way of nature and the way of grace.
By the way,
You have to choose which one you'll follow.
My favorite pieces of plastic music.
You'll be grown before that tree is tall.
It takes fierce will to get ahead in this world. Come on, hit me. Hit me. Come on, son.
He's afraid of you. You expect things of him only an adult can accomplish.
I've just always wanted you to be strong. Be your own man.
Father, Mother, always you wrestle inside me. Always you will.
Someday we'll fall down and weep. And we'll understand it all. All things. Guide us to the end of time.
Unless you love, your life will flash by.
Well, this is just a wonderful, wonderful film. And I think, like all of Terrence Malick's movies, I mean, if you don't know of Terrence Malick's films that he made in the 70s, two of them, I guess he made only two, but Badlands, of course, with Sissy Spacek, again, and also Days of Heaven, which is one of the most gorgeous movies ever made. And I think this film harks back to the beauty of Days of Heaven. And a lot of his movies have been sort of, I mean, he came back with The Thin Red Line, which is I think one of the most poetic, well, if war films can be poetic, certainly probably the most poetic war film ever made. But his movies have been sort of really kind of hit and miss. I really liked The New World a great deal. The way he played with time, and he's really sort of embraced this idea of the natural world and sort of the wonder of creation. And yet humanity's place in that the struggles, the tiny struggles of even domesticated human life, a family, can be just as important. The whatever goes on between a man and a woman, or a mother and father and their children, are just as important as the infinitude of the cosmos. And what I've really loved about his movies, and it really is the way he juxtaposes humanity and our existence and contextualizes it within the natural world. And for me, there's something incredibly uplifting about all of it. And I find while his movies are sometimes perhaps difficult to get into, I really enjoyed this particular film. It really spoke to me on a number of different levels, and I can't recommend it highly enough. I mean, it's really it's just a wonderful movie. And if you can get the Criterion Blu-ray, I highly recommend watching that disc because it's amazing. Now, this next movie, as Elizabeth will tell you, she catches me watching. If I'm not watching the whole movie late at night on YouTube when she's sleeping, then I'm watching clips of it on YouTube. I don't know why I love this movie so much. It's a great movie. It details, again, it's about a real event, and it's so well realized. It's so entertaining. It's brilliantly edited. Again, an impeccable cast, and it's easily one of my favorite movies of the last 10 years. I never get tired of watching this. I never get tired of watching it. It's The Big Short.
Michael, how are you?
I found something really interesting.
The whole housing market is propped up on these bad loans. They will fail.
The housing market is rock solid.
It's a time bomb.
So Mike Burry, who gets his hair cut at Supercuts and doesn't wear shoes, knows more than Alan Greenspan.
Dr. Mike Burry, yes, he does.
You know what? I'm pissed off. American people are getting screwed by the big banks. And I am getting madder and madder.
It's unbelievable.
Then this guy walks into my office and says,
there's some shady stuff going down. All the banks were having a big old party. A few outsiders saw it when no one else could. The whole world economy might collapse.
I'm sure the world's banks have more incentives than greed. You're wrong.
No one's paying attention.
The banks got greedy, and we can profit off of their stupidity.
You want to bet against the banks?
I think we're either high or having a stroke. Kind of brilliant.
Fraud has never, ever worked. Eventually, things go south. When the hell did we forget all that?
How can the banks let this happen? It's fueled by stupidity.
But that's not stupidity, that's fraud.
Tell me the difference between stupid and illegal, and I'll have my wife's brother arrested.
You have any idea what you just did? You just bet against the American economy.
If you're wrong, you can lose it all. The banks defrauded the American people. Now we can kick them in the teeth.
Okay, here we go. You target strippers with bad loans.
And they're all cash rich.
Not going to be able to refinance.
On all my loans?
What do you mean, all your loans?
I have 5 houses and a condo.
Of course, Adam McKay was known for movies with Will Ferrell, such as Anchorman, and of course Talladega Nights, The Other Guys. And while I liked those movies, I wasn't necessarily a huge fan of them. I was blown away by this film, and it again, a movie based on real events that maybe compressed things or maybe pulled the truth a little bit. But it dealt with the 2008 subprime mortgage crisis that I was directly affected by, not because I had a house, but because I had an inheritance that was decimated by what happened in 2008. So maybe that's why I find this movie to be so incredible. But of course, again, peak Ryan Gosling in this movie. Steve Carell is terrific, and the cast of character actors that were in this film, my God, what a great group of actors. Again, a movie that is wildly entertaining. I don't know if there's a theme here, but between The Social Network and The Big Short and another film that I want to talk about, which I'll talk about in a minute. But I'm always fascinated by, I guess one of the things, all storytelling is really about human foibles and things that are I love humanity, and I am constantly amazed by what we can do and what we can't do and what we should do and what we don't do. And I think that there's something irresistible about movies that are incredibly well crafted. Of course, he came out with Vice after this that was about Dick Cheney that I didn't love as much. I thought one of the things about The Big Short is that it skirts comedy and drama. It does, and satire, even though it's not. There's a lot of humor in it, whereas I thought he went a little too far with Vice. But I really, really, really love this film a great deal. My next film is also about real events, and it stars Oscar Isaac, and it's not Inside Llewyn Davis, which I love. The Coen Brothers' Inside Llewyn Davis, I think, is an incredible movie. I love it. But I like this movie even more, and Oscar Isaac became one of my favorite actors in 2010. And this is a movie not a lot of people have seen, but it is, again, bringing back Jessica Chastain. It's called A Most Violent Year.
I understand you and your men have a job to do here, but we're in the middle of a 10-year-old's birthday party.
And I'm sorry, but we are coming in.
That's not a problem. We have nothing to hide from you. My husband is a good man. Don't mistake his honesty for weakness. He deserves respect. This was very disrespectful.
I run a fair and clean business, and I will fight till my last breath to prove that.
These are dangerous times, and we have to adapt. It's not like when we was driving.
There were more murders and rapes in this city last year than there have ever been. So if you've come to tell me that we have an urgent security issue here, trust me, I'm aware.
This can't continue. You're at war here.
It's been 2 years since you started investigating my industry. Do you have any idea who's been doing this to us?
Or you may be doing something to bring this on yourself.
I have always taken the path that is most right. The result is never in question for me. Just what path do you take to get there?
Where did you get that?
Your youngest daughter found it in the bushes outside her front door. It's not a brick through a car window. This is your kid playing with a loaded gun. Katie!
The DA's coming down with 14-count indictment. We've just pushed it a little too far, that's all.
Can't have this situation continuing.
If one of these guys shoots someone, it will be the end of everything that we have worked for.
You now have serious legal cases against you, ranging from fraud to tax evasion.
It wasn't your good luck helping you out all these years. It was me.
I don't want anything to do with this!
When it feels scary to jump, that is exactly when you jump. Otherwise, you end up staying in the same place your whole life. And that I can't do.
Really just who would have thought a movie about the New York City's waste elimination, the garbage industry, could be this compelling. But again, based on real events. And it's a film that is tense, it is emotional, and it just has powerhouse performances. You won't believe how entertaining this movie is, after all. And J.C. Chandor wrote and directed it. Again, you really feel, you can even tell from the trailer, again, the feeling of authorship in this film. I mean, again, I felt like this was a movie that would have been made in the 70s, and I really miss those kinds of movies. We don't get them anymore. We're not and maybe I'm wrong, because all the movies on my list so far, I think we are getting those movies. It's just a question of they're not getting the big studio releases. Sometimes they're more indie than anything else, but it was really great to see A Most Violent Year come out. And I'm surprised that more people don't talk about this movie. And I want to give it up to Jessica Chastain, because of all the actresses working, and I know Elizabeth's going to be like, oh, you're just talking about Jessica Chastain because you love redheads. No, I think that Jessica Chastain, if you look, I mean, yeah, she was in X-Men Dark Phoenix, but if you look at her choices over the last decade, I mean, everything from Zero Dark 30 on, she's an actress that has been relatively, I think, fearless. She's had, I don't know if it's her management or her, I don't know what, but she's really done a pretty great job of picking amazing material, and she hasn't been afraid of being a supporting character in films. I think she has been very fearless in her choices, and I really do respect the fact that she seems to be, I like almost every performance she gives. She's a consummate actress, and she just has great taste in material, so kudos to her for this film. And again, gosh, I mean, it's such a great movie, and it's not a movie that normally my imagination connoisseurs such as yourselves might not necessarily, it wouldn't be the first pick of things you might want to see, but I guarantee you that you will enjoy the film. That's, of course, Midnight in Paris. Oh, see, I just gave away one of my movies. But A Most Violent Year, directed by J.C. Chandor. See, it's hard now, because it's hard to coordinate all this video and audio, but I'm trying to get better. I hope I'm getting better for all of you, because I am quite enjoying having all of this newfangled technology surrounding me in addition to all of my stuff. So I'm kind of like the character of Alien that James Franco played in Harmony Korine's Spring Breakers. I feel like I'm Alien. All of my shit. I'm surrounded by my shit, if you saw that. Another movie that is not on my list, but a movie I actually kind of enjoyed. So check out Spring Breakers if you haven't. Not on my list. I'll tell you what is on my list, though. You know what is on my list? What is on my list is perhaps Booksmart was good, but this might be my favorite teen comedy coming-of-age story. Well, it is probably of the last 10 years. I dearly love this movie. If you're a child of the 80s, you will love this movie too. I present Sing Street.
Your mother and I really are under a lot of pressure at the moment.
We had a look at our accounts and...
They're taking you out of school.
We're not taking you out of school, we're transferring you. You'll be new then. What's your name?
Connor Lawler.
Shut up! We have a black shoe policy here, Mr. Lawler.
They're brown, they're quite sensible.
They're not black.
Who knows what this new prison will do for you? This is your time.
You see, it's beautiful. How come you're not in school?
I'm a model.
Cool. Do you want to be in a video for my band?
So if you're in a band, sing me a song.
Take on me. We need to form a band.
What?
Connor's putting a band together.
Oh, good Jesus.
You'd play every instrument known to mankind. Probably. Show 'em.
It's all about the girl, isn't it?
What's this?
Homework.
I have school in the morning.
This is school. Rock and roll is a risk. You risk being ridiculed.
Jesus, what are you all wearing?
Yeah, we're just working that out.
That's great fun.
Yeah, it's really fun.
Have you kissed her yet?
She's got a boyfriend. Pulled off in his car, music blaring.
What was he listening to?
Genesis.
No woman can truly love a man who listens to Phil Collins.
So the guy with the car.
It's complicated.
As long as you're happy.
You are truly on a hero's journey. Are you up to that?
I think she's just an amazing human being.
Think big, Connor.
End of term disco at the school hall. I say we ask if we can play there. It's our first gig. It's gonna be amazing.
I'll try and come.
You have to come.
never known it.
Not exactly the Beatles, is it?
I actually love this band.
Sing Street was, of course, directed by the director of Once. And if you haven't seen Once, I thought also one of the great romances of the past decade. I think it came out 10 years ago, maybe. But this film it's so happy and funny, and it sometimes can be bittersweet, and the music is terrific, and it really captured, I don't know, of all the movies I've seen in a long time, it captured how I felt as a teenager. I mean, it really did. And maybe it's because of the music, but the idea that let's form a band, let's go make something, let's go do something, and they do it. You know, it's not angst-ridden. It's just a joyous film. It'll put a smile on your face. I dearly loved Sing Street. If you haven't seen it, I think you will too. I really think you will enjoy it. Now, yesterday, Alexander Wilson got in just under the wire, but I didn't see. He did send me a super chat. And Alexander Wilson said, isn't Elizabeth the perfect woman? Well, you know, I have to say, Elizabeth is pretty goddamn great. I don't know if anybody's perfect, but she certainly is. You know, it's the old, the Grace Jones song, I may not be perfect, but I'm perfect for you. Is that what it was? Or was that a lyric? Maybe I'm wrong. I don't remember. But I think that's what I have to say, that Elizabeth may not be perfect, but she's perfect for me, and I think we're pretty good together. So, Alexander, I thank you for asking. Tim is here all the way from down under. I guess, Tim, it's already Happy New Year to you, sir, because you're past the international date line. It's tomorrow in Australia. So this is not Cooper's, but, you know, have another drink for you. Tim says, my top 10 movies from my homeland Australia are 1, Gallipoli, 2, Mad Max 2, 3, Breaker Morant, 4, Picnic at Hanging Rock, 5, Wake in Fright, 6, The Castle, 7, Chopper, ooh, I love Chopper, 8, The Babadook, 9, Mad Max, and 10, The Rover. I own a lot of those actually on Blu-ray. But you know what he says? He ends his letter, he tipped me, this was a tip. Tim says, I don't count Fury Road as an Australian film. Come on, man. Really? You don't count Fury Road, Mad Max Fury Road, directed by George Miller. You don't count that as an Australian film? How can that be? How can that be? I'll tell you, I do. And you know what else? It's one of my favorite movies of the last 10 years. George Miller, after many fits and stops and starts, it was going to be shot at, Broken Hill, where they shot Road Warrior. They couldn't because they had torrential rains and it became green and things grew there. And they couldn't get this thing going. 9/11, the Gulf Wars. I mean, they had such a problem making Fury Road. But let me tell you, Mad Max Fury Road is easily one of my favorite movies of the last 10 years. It was funny, the year it came out, 2015, I believe, before it had Academy consideration, it randomly just happened to be playing like a couple of times a week in the Cinerama Dome. And I just noticed it was playing, so Elizabeth hadn't seen it. So we went and got to see this again. I originally saw it at the Chinese theater, like I saw The Rise of Skywalker. It was amazing. But I was also able to go with Elizabeth and see this in the Cinerama Dome just randomly one night. I think it was the holidays. You know, it was over Christmas. Same time, it was 4 years ago. But yes, can't get enough of Mad Max Fury Road.
In this wasteland, I am the one who runs from both the living and the dead. A man reduced to a single instinct. Survive.
It is by my hand. You will rise from the ashes of this world.
We are not thieves. We are not thieves.
Where is she taking them? I want them back! They're my property!
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Want to get through this?
Let's go!
As the world fell, each of us in our own way was broken. It was hard to know who was more crazy. Me or everyone else.
And that movie actually came out on my birthday, on May 15th. And I have to tell you, I think only an Australian could have made this movie. I mean, there's something uniquely Australian about George Miller's vision. And this is, of course, the fourth in the Mad Max series. And I'll tell you, while I would have loved to have seen Mel Gibson come back, I thought Tom Hardy played a different kind of a Max. If you hadn't seen the other three, the Mad Max trilogy, you could still see this film and get something out of it. Of course, we had characters like the Doof Warrior, he of the fire-spitting electric guitar, and Morton Joe, who was played by the actor who played the toe cutter originally in the first Mad Max. I mean, and you know, it's Furiosa, which, I mean, how great was Charlize Theron as Furiosa? One of the great female, certainly one of the most fantastic empowered female characters on screen. And I don't know when they talked about doing a Furiosa spinoff, and there is talk that George Miller is going to make another one of these. And I say, bring it on, my friends. Bring it on, because this is one hell of a time at the movies, and I never get tired of this. The score, the unbelievable score in this film, my God, is this movie awesome. Dieter Bastian is here. Dieter Bastian sent me a tip. He says, Rob, in Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, I totally missed the shots to the insane. Wait, hang on a second. I need glasses to read this stuff because it's not that big. Hang on. I totally missed the shots to the inside of the transporter where Chewbacca was seemingly held captive. In my head, I imagine the crew of the ship tossing him side to side when Reylo was pushing and pulling, like in the best Star Wars manner. Well, Dieter, all the way from Deutschland. I don't think it's New Year's there right now, but look, was there a lot of goofy weirdness in The Rise of Skywalker? Sure. And that was, I'll bet you that Chewbacca wasn't supposed to come back. I'm sure somebody was like, wait a minute, you can't kill Chewbacca. I don't know why that was the case, but that's kind of what I believe. I don't think Chewbacca was supposed to come back, but thank God they brought him back, because there would have been hell to pay. we shall see. It's interesting. There were rumors that the Millennium Falcon was destroyed and a bunch of our characters died on the Millennium Falcon. Maybe that's what this was, and people just heard it wrong. It was a thing of telephone, and Chewbacca died, and then they brought him back. I could see that being a reshoot. I have nothing. I have nothing. No evidence to that effect. I don't know for sure, but it could be. Madzif Yada sent in a super chat. We drink our Drencrum in the same Korova milk bar. For those of you who don't know what Drencrum is, there's Drencrum, Synthamesk, or Vencrum, which is what we were drinking. They would sharpen you up and make you ready for a bit of the old ultraviolence. That's, of course, a Clockwork Orange reference. And yes, sir, Madzif, you and I, we would probably be drinking at the Korova milk bar together. Now, I received a very generous tip from Willow Yang today. Willow, you didn't have to do that, but thank you very much. As you all know, Willow Yang is one of our treasures here at the Burnettwork on Robservations. She is quickly, for somebody I've never met, she's one of my favorite people, and we've been delighted by her intellect and her keen wit. And her journey through Star Trek has been very interesting to watch. And sometimes her side excursions into telling us about diseases or microbiology, which she's getting her PhD in. We're still waiting to hear about getting published. Come on, Willow, what's up? You said it was going to get published. I need to know more. But it's been great to get to know you, if only through your work. And you've only made the website, theburnettwork.net, better, and you've made this show better through your contribution. So thank you very much for that. Willow says, she was talking about a film called Ash is the Purest White. She wrote in about that. I have not seen that film, but she writes, she says, I appreciated Ash is the Purest White, but it takes patience for me. It's a slow burn melodrama that also looks at the development of modern China. I just had the feeling that you might like it. You know what? I'm all about that. I can't wait to watch that, actually. Happy New Year. Hope 2020 will be a great year. Well, I think it will be, Willow, as long as you stick around and write me more letters. Your tips are very generous, but I would much rather have you participate, and I really thank you for how you've supported the channel in many, many different ways. So thank you very much for that. Jason S. sent in a tip. When they go back to the original negatives, when they do a proper 4K scan of older films, does that always include them having to digitally recomposite all of the film elements too? I've always hated matte lines. Well, Jason, that's a really good question. What Jason is referring to is sometimes, I don't know if they've cleaned up a lot of this, but with a lot of films where we had visual effects that were optically printed, you used to be able to see the matte lines where the optical printing was done, the holdout mats for spaceships and star fields and things like that. Or sometimes you would just see matte lines when matte paintings were composited. Now, when they go back and they do a 4K scan, they do not. Those matte lines are sort of baked in to the final shots, but they do not go back and recomposite the visual effects. But they should be able to, during color correction now, to remove those matte lines. So when they go through and do new 4K transfers, they do clean a lot of that stuff up. So you shouldn't see those as much as you used to in the past. It's a really good question. Now, for Star Trek The Next Generation, when they went back and did the restorations of Star Trek, they had to take the whole series through post-production again. And in the case of Star Trek The Next Generation, all of the visual effects were originally composited on video. They were shot on film, but composited on video. So for that restoration, it was only in 2K, unfortunately. But for Star Trek The Next Generation, they did, in fact, go back and recomposite all of those shots. And some of those shots had more than 10 layers of elements between all the different lighting passes on the ships, multiple ships. So they actually did recomposite all of the effect shots, which was pretty, I mean, it was very, effects film shrinks. So when you have things like starships and one of the passes, they would shoot a model multiple times to get the different passes, the lighting from the warp nacelles, the internal lighting, like the lights from inside portholes or things like that. Sometimes, because there's a lot of precise light, they would have to go back and use computers to unstretch the film or put it back the way it was supposed to be, because the elements, I mean, they were old, they were 25 years old, a little over 25 years old when they did that. So they had to go do that. Jason S. also says, oh, Jason. So Jason S. has been in Cannon Beach, Oregon. And as I was talking about yesterday, everyone knows that my favorite candy in all of the world is cinnamon saltwater taffy from Bruce's Candy Kitchen. Jason says he's in New Year, he's in Cannon Beach now. He sent me a box. He actually tipped me to tell me that he sent me a box of cinnamon saltwater taffy. Now, do I not have the greatest viewers ever? Jason, thank you for the question, and thank you for supporting the channel, and most of all, thank you for sending me a box of my favorite candy. By God, that was way above and beyond. Thank you so much. Vegetable Tube sent in a super chat. John Campea has taught you a lot. Has he asked you to strike him down yet, like Palpatine? No. John, I keep learning. When I left him, I was but the learner. Now I am the master. No, I wouldn't say that. John knows a great deal about streaming and wirecasting and all of these things, and he's been doing it for a very long time. And I have to say, one of the great things about John is how much he puts into his show, how much prep time, the quality of his show, what he's trying to go for. It's really terrific. And again, I learned so much. I wouldn't know. I mean, this software is still taking me a little time to learn, and doing these transitions on the fly. It seems to be going pretty well. We shall see. But I have not been asked to strike him down yet. He used to do MMA fighting. So John Campea used to do MMA fighting, and he was a break dancer. Put those two things together, that is one formidable dude. And I, for one, would not want to have to stand up against that amazing amount of power. You know what I'm saying? Madzif Jada says, Clockwork Johnson was censored from John's show. I don't know that. Who is Clockwork? I don't know. I have no idea. If that's the case, it could be. I don't know. Clockwork Johnson. That's interesting. Dieter Bastian is here again from Deutschland. Rob, could we all agree that the movie moment of the year was Captain America holding Mjolnir? This will be the last time for 2019. I will toss coins to our Witcher of Positivity, RMB. Happy New Year. Well, Dieter, all the way from Deutschland, you've also been very supportive of the channel. I thank you for that. It's certainly, look, for me, as an old school comic book reader from the time I was a kid, I never thought that I would ever see an Avengers movie. I think the 1-2 punch of Infinity War and Endgame, I mean, it's funny to me that people complain about, oh, there's time travel. Oh, do you not read comic books? I mean, Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame put together, to me, were just astonishing that they even got made. I couldn't believe it. And they just embraced all the comic book tropes, and they made you believe. If you look at Iron Man 1 and then jump ahead to look at Endgame, it's crazy how the Marvel Cinematic Universe evolved and sucked us all in and was able to deliver. I mean, in Iron Man, the first Iron Man, they really take the character of Iron Man, they humanize him, they make us believe in him, and it's a pretty much a small, intimate tale of how one man develops a conscience. And by the time you get to Endgame, the Infinity Gauntlet, traveling through time, meeting your dead father, being on foreign planets, having moons thrown at you by Thanos, it's incredible that the MCU took us from Iron Man 1 all the way to Endgame. And then we love it. We love it. And I think that's what's been so maybe the most amazing thing as far as imagination connoisseurs go, for all the cool shit that we've got, that journey from Iron Man 1 to the end of Endgame, and I'm not forgetting Spider-Man Far From Home, just the transition of all of those movies, the 22 movies before, if 23, the entire Infinity Saga is 23 movies, but to see where the MCU took us, unbelievable. I mean, it's just unbelievable that we had this happen and we got to watch it. It was amazing. Be Sweaty sent in a super chat. Hello, Rob. I just wanted to wish you a happy new year. Thanks for all of your hard work you do for us fans. Stay sweaty, my friend. Well, Be Sweaty, let me tell you, I love your name, Be Sweaty, because I can't read it and not think of the immortal, infinite, late John Schnepp, who got me into this whole YouTube racket. And, of course, he coined the phrase sweaties. That was his phrase. And when I see you honor him with your name, Be Sweaty, I know what you mean. And I think about the big man every day, and I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him. Stubble McShave tipped, Rob, time to sigh and roll your eyes. Every time I see Inception, I think of the Wheel of Time. I think of the Wheel of Time, where dreamwalkers can do things that's very similar to what's depicted in Inception. You won't see it the first season, though. Happy New Year to Rob and to the Post-Geek Singularity. One of my great hopes of 2020 is that the Wheel of Time television show is awesome, if only because our great friend Stubble McShave across the pond over there in Sweden doesn't have a meltdown. I can't remember somebody I've known who's more excited about something than Stubble is about the Wheel of Time TV series. And that's one of the great things about this channel, is that I know these things about you. I know them about you. I know them about you people, and I've loved that about you. I loved being able to share these things with you, and I can't wait to watch the Wheel of Time series and come back to Stubble and say, bruh, either I'm going to love it or not. But I think I'm going to love it. JB Bonifacio sent a super chat. It's ultimately not a good idea, but damned if Tron Legacy is not my favorite film soundtrack of the 2010s. Well, it's ultimately not a good movie. Not a good idea. You know, I'm getting old. It's hard to see these small. I haven't blown this up. Daft Punk's score for Tron Legacy is clearly one of the greatest movie soundtracks of, if not the greatest. I mean, I could play that on repeat. I could listen to that for an entire day. I could drive from LA to Seattle, and I don't think I would ever get tired of that soundtrack. That soundtrack just kicks ass. It's so good. It was the same way that Wendy Carlos scored the original Tron. I thought it was inspired to get Daft Punk to come back and, not to come back, but to get Daft Punk to come and score Tron Legacy. I mean, Daft Punk, between a lot of their music, their album they released after their score for Tron Legacy. I mean, they had a good decade. They had a good decade. But yeah, I agree. I think the Daft Punk scores is just, it's wonderful. And absolutely. JB Bonifacio says, he also sent another super chat. He says, is 2019 the best year in movies this decade? You know what? I don't know, but it's certainly a great year. But you look back, and there has been, like 2015, there was like I picked 4 trailers from 2015. I just thought, if you look back at all the movies that have come out this decade, there has been a lot of great movies that we have seen. And I think movies, it proves that movies are vibrant and as alive and well as they've ever been. Certainly the exhibition of films has changed. A lot of these smaller movies, you're going to find a movie like Most Violent Year, the way they were designed, they had limited theatricals and they go right to streaming. So there is still, and I feel this myself, there is still a romanticism about seeing your movie theatrically released. It doesn't always make economic sense in this day and age, and I think every movie should be seen in a movie theater. But the amount of movies, the amount of money it takes to promote films, it's difficult. And the theatrical movie-going experience has become, I think, more spectacle-oriented. It's got to be like more of an event, whether it's a social event with a movie like 12 Years a Slave, or whether it's a comic book movie event. I think movie-going now has to have some kind of cultural significance to get people to pay money and go to the theater, because of the fact that nowadays so much is on streaming and people wait to see things on streaming. It's hard to get people to get out into the theater. But I think, there are reasons to go to the movies still, and we've seen them all decade long. And one of my absolute favorite movies that also is one of my most rewatchable films, and I think it's easily this director's best movie in 10 years, a director who I've spent the better part of my life admiring. I think of all the movies that he's made, and one of them had a big anniversary, well, not an anniversary, but 2019 marks a significant date in this filmmaker's filmography, because one of his movies, perhaps his most famous movie, took place in the year 2019, believe it or not, even though it was made a long time ago. In 1982, it was originally released. Now, of course, I'm talking about Blade Runner, and the filmmaker is Ridley Scott. And one of the films that he made this decade is one of my most favorite movies, maybe not just of this decade, but ever. I love this movie. I love the extended cut of this film. I'm, of course, talking about The Martian.
I guarantee you that at some point, everything's gonna go south on you.
Ready?
And you're gonna say, this is it. This is how I end.
Commander, Mark is dead. We have to go now.
Now you can either accept that, or you can get to work.
This will come as quite a shock to my crewmates. And to NASA. And to the entire world. But I'm still alive. Surprise. Here's the rub. It's gonna be 4 years for another mission to reach me. And I'm gonna have designed to last 31 days. So I gotta make water and grow food on a planet where nothing grows. But if I can't figure out a way to make contact with NASA, then none of this matters anyway.
We've got an incoming message.
Mein Gott. Mark Watney's still alive.
Woo! In your face, Neil Armstrong.
There must be some kind of way out of here.
Okay, so let's do the math. I have enough food to last for 50 days.
He's going to starve to death long before we can help him.
So I'm gonna have to science the shit out of this.
He's 50 million miles away from home. He's totally alone. What the hell is he thinking right now?
I am the greatest botanist on this planet.
I know how to save Mark Watney.
But we need the Hermes crew.
We either have a high chance of killing one or a low chance of killing 6. I'm not risking their lives. It's bigger than one person. No, it's not.
NASA rejected the mission.
So if we do this,
We're talking mutiny. If anything goes wrong, we die.
do you realize how crazy this is? We had no other option.
No matter what happens, tell the world, tell my family that I never stop fighting to make it home.
Man, do I love that movie. And this brings up an actor, I think, that everybody has come to love, is Benedict Wong, who was in, of course, The Martian. And he also, he's a compatriot of Doctor Strange. He's even in the MCU. He was in an episode of Black Mirror. I mean, he's popped up everywhere. I've come to love Benedict Wong as a presence in films, and definitely his decade. And it was sort of great to see him. Again, this movie, I've often said on the John Campea Show and this show, I love, Sean Bean, Jeff Daniels, Donald Glover, Mackenzie Davis. I love the NASA team in this movie. I think I would watch a series of movies about the NASA technicians and the NASA team that works so hard to save Mark Watney in this film. I love the ensemble nature of the cast. It was interesting. You had this great ensemble of actors, and then you would cut in between them, whether they're on the Hermes spaceship, again, Jessica Chastain, whether they're on the ground in NASA with Benedict Wong and the team, or you'd cut to the sole survivor, the sole remainder, the only human being alive on Mars, of course, Mark Watney, played by Matt Damon. This film is so enjoyable to watch. I watch this movie constantly, and again, like Ridley Scott seems to have one of these for every film. He has an extended cut of this film, which I do prefer, and I think it's just a great movie. Jet Screamer says, hey, it's the Centipede trilogy, illustrates today's Hollywood. Well, for those of you who don't know, the Human Centipede trilogy is quite an interesting, it gives all new meaning to the words ass to mouth. But if you haven't seen the Centipede trilogy, whichever sequence you choose to watch, it is what it is. And I can't deny that it's certainly interesting. I don't know if it so much encapsulates today's Hollywood. Clearly it was provocative, and those films did what they were supposed to do. I wasn't necessarily a big fan of those movies because in a way I think the whole idea was trying a little too hard. I get what they were going for. I totally understand. I do. But, yeah. But Jet Screamer, they will be remembered, those movies. Jet Screamer also says, damn the man, save the empire. Well, yes, thank you for that. Mark C says, Rob, you might want to not run trailers. I think I think you are getting copyright struck. I don't know about that. Maybe. I mean, I can always demonetize this chat. As far as I understand it, they're commercials. I think you can use them because you can use them in documentaries for fair use and things like that. So perhaps, we will see. I don't expect to get a copyright strike playing trailers. There's a lot of channels that play trailers, of course. And we are doing it. We are presenting it in a documentary form, but we'll see. Mads of Jada says, Rob, Clockwork Johnson equals penis statue. Censored? Oh, I don't think so. I don't know if an artwork can be censored. I don't know if you can do it. It's actually Herman Mechanick's, it's called The Rocking Machine, the actual sculpture. It's a real sculpture, and it's a woman's ass that turns into a penis, but it is a piece of art. So as far as I know, I don't know if people would censor that. I actually have the 6-scale one and a full-size one. Aaron Strelinsky is here. Just wanted to say Happy New Year and show some love to the channel. It's my boyfriend. It's my boyfriend. Oh, my boyfriend Utah's birthday today, and we watch the show any chance we get. Well, wait, is that Utah? Yeah, I think it says Utah. Well, Aaron, here's to you, and here is to your boyfriend and his birthday. And I'm glad you guys watch together. I like that. I like to think that Robservations brings people together. I'd like to imagine that you end every show in some hot, sweaty coupling, but apparently I don't really have that kind of a show. So maybe you'll be inspired to go watch a movie together after this, a movie that you haven't seen, or maybe get a graphic novel that you haven't read or something. But it's great to hear that you guys watch together, and a big happy birthday to him. By the way, you know who's having a birthday today? Well, unless time has passed, it's probably already past midnight, but Joseph all the way over across the pond was having a birthday today, or I don't know as far as time zones are concerned, but so happy birthday to Joseph. He's been here for a long time. He, of course, drew me an amazing piece of artwork, which I'm getting framed, of myself dressed in a Next Generation uniform, which is probably more canonical and screen accurate than the Next Generation uniforms that we are going to see in Star Trek Picard. But you never know. So happy birthday, Joseph. And also I have to say, even though she's already living in 2020, Lynn Hobday is, she's over in Japan. She's our British agent, our British expat in Japan. She's already celebrating New Year's. So happy New Year to Lynn out there in Japan. And let's see. Here's a movie that I was dubious of, even though Danny Boyle is one of my favorite filmmakers. It's a sequel that was 20 years coming. We're seeing a lot of sequels like that, sequels to older movies. And the original was one of my favorite films of the 90s. And this sequel was, I thought, hugely successful and a terrific movie all on its own. That would, of course, be T2, Trainspotting 2.
Hello, Mark. So what you been up to for 20 years?
Choose life. Choose Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and hope that someone, somewhere cares.
Missed you, Mike.
I missed you too, Spud.
Choose looking up old flames, wishing you'd done it all differently.
Do you still take heroin?
No. And choose watching history repeat itself.
Hello, Franco.
Simon, I'm home. Choose your future. Call the police.
What shall I say?
Just tell them we're dead. Choose reality TV, slut-shaming, revenge porn. Choose a 0-hour contract, a 2-hour journey to work, and choose the same for your kids, only worse. And smother the pain with an unknown dose of an unknown drug made in somebody's kitchen. And then, take a deep breath. You're an addict. So be addicted. Just be addicted to something else. Choose the ones you love. Choose your future. Choose life.
I was very surprised by this film. I really liked Trainspotting 2 a great deal more than I even thought I would. I didn't know how would Danny Boyle deal with bringing back all of those characters and show them, how would it be relevant? And I thought he did a terrific job about showing life changing and the world changing and social media being a part of it all. I really, really love this movie, and to me, it shows me that, I hope, I still dream about making a Free Enterprise sequel, and 20 years later, I think this movie would really show the way. And I think now, if you've never seen the original Trainspotting, I had a friend, he passed away, my friend Sean, hated the original Trainspotting because he couldn't deal with the grunginess of it all. Like, Sean was definitely a child of the 80s, and he liked everything bright and shiny and 80s music and all of that, and I think that it was a movie he just couldn't handle. Trainspotting. Maybe it was the scene when Renton dives into the worst toilet in Scotland. I don't know, but it's funny. I think he would have liked Trainspotting 2 a lot. I think he didn't make it. He died in his early 40s, and I miss him every day. He was one of my best friends, but this film, I don't know why, but it made me think about him a lot because he was somebody I met when I first moved to LA, and we would have been able. Of course, Patrick Van Horn plays him in Free Enterprise, so I think about him a lot because of Trainspotting 2 and how our relationship would be today if he was still here. But yeah, anyway, yeah. So Be Sweaty says back again, Rob, I have to say, I agree with Stubble. The Wheel of Time series is fantastic. Well, I'm gonna. I feel like a moral obligation now that I have to read the Wheel of Time series. So, who knows? Mark C says, Rob, for the love of everything holy, please quit streaming trailers. The YouTube police are going to get you. Well, I've done that before, and nobody seemed to have a problem with it. People are using, when they make documentaries about Psycho or the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, they're able to use trailers because they're being released as promotional purposes. I don't know. I don't know if I'll get a strike against me or not. I have done it before, and I haven't had a problem. So, because we're presenting them in a documentary context. And by the way, all of these trailers came from YouTube. So who knows? We'll see. You could be right. Maybe the YouTube police will come get me. James Urban tipped. He says, I've decided to start collecting movies from the Criterion Collection. What are some Criterion movies I must own? Well, that is a good question. It really depends on what movies you like. And I think the great thing about the Criterion Collection is, and for those of you who don't know, I have been collecting Criterion titles since, get this, 1984. And the Criterion titles I first bought, they first released, there are two titles that they released on Laserdisc were Citizen Kane and King Kong, the original 1933 King Kong. And what was so great about Criterion was not only did they give you these incredible transfers, the transfers, they would go back and painstakingly transfer films, but what they also would do is they really pioneered special features. They were the first place you could get audio commentary because the technology of Laserdisc allowed them to do that. You could step through frame by frame, so they had video essays and audio commentaries, and they really pioneered the idea of special features. And then, of course, they jumped right into DVD, and then they jumped into Blu-ray. They have not jumped into 4K, however. And I would look back and find out. It's hard to say. Like, the thing about Criterion titles is there's no necessarily like marquee titles. It was funny. Criterion for a while flirted. They released Armageddon and The Rock, Michael Bay movies, because they had an output deal with Disney in the 90s, so they did crazy things like that. But it really depends. I mean, there's so many great Criterion discs. I've talked a lot about them. I mean, Michael Mann's Thief is definitely one I would suggest getting. Other titles they've had that I really loved were like Man Who Fell to Earth when they put that out, which is now out of print. It just really depends on what you're looking for. Belle de Jour, a favorite movie of mine. All That Jazz, one of my favorite films. Incredible Criterion disc. But I would just suggest it's your own tastes. I mean, they've put out horror, they put out science fiction, they put out drama. Of course, they put out a ton of foreign films. Everything like Kurosawa's output you can get on Criterion. I highly recommend any Criterion discs that that Kurosawa has put out through Criterion. I mean, they've even done things like, if you like the Blind Swordsman films, the Japanese Blind Swordsman movies, they did their incredible Zatoichi box and the Lone Wolf and Cub films. Not only did they release the Lone Wolf and Cub films, but they also released within that set my beloved Shogun Assassin, which is a compilation of two of the movies with a new disco soundtrack and dubbed in English. And you can't go wrong with Shogun Assassin. So there's so many great Criterion titles that I would recommend. But again, it's really up to you. I think they're up to the Godzilla collection that they put out this year. The Showa Godzilla series, there's 15 movies in this set. This was their 1,000th. This is spine number 1,000. So Criterion's put out 1,000 different titles on multiple formats. So good on Criterion. But yeah, again, I can't tell you what you should get, but just look and see. If you want to delve into classic cinema, look, they just put out All About Eve, which is one of my favorite movies. And you know what else they put out? Another one of my favorite movies of the decade. A French film that is also based on a graphic novel. And while I don't say this too often, I think this might be my favorite movie, and I know people are going to snicker. You're going to snicker. But this might be my favorite movie ever made based on a comic. And that is, of course, the Palme d'Or winning Blue is the Warmest Color.
J'étais pas bien. C'était trop bien.
Allez, les détails.
Il y en a pas.
Comment ça, il y en a pas? Vous avez fait quoi? Je comprends pas.
On a passé l'après-midi ensemble, c'est tout.
C'est parce que c'était naze que tu ne racontes pas?
Putain, on dirait la PJ du sexe, quoi. J'ai l'impression de faire semblant. Faire semblant de tout. Moi, il me manque un truc qui...
L'enfance, c'est ça, hein. C'est l'âge où vous en sortez, j'espère. C'est l'âge où on n'est pas encore assez mûr, on n'est pas encore assez fort.
T'es gênée?
Ouais, un peu.
T'es marrante. C'est qui la fille qui est venue me chercher la dernière fois?
Avec les cheveux bleus.
Non mais après moi je m'en fous, tu vois, que tu sois Gwyn. Mais le truc c'est que t'es venu chez moi plusieurs fois dormir à poil dans mon lit, tu vois. Là c'est un peu plus dur.
Je viens de te dire, je suis pas lesbienne, faut que je te le dise comment, putain, t'es conne ou quoi? On est bien là, hein. On est ravis de vous rencontrer, Emma. En tout cas, c'est très gentil de l'aider à préparer ses devoirs de philosophie.
Merci. Tu les aimes tes cours de philo?
Je les adore. Ça va pas?
Tu dis que t'avais honte d'être avec une fille.
Non, j'avais pas honte, c'est juste que
Ça fait combien de temps que tu me prends pour une conne?
Je te prends pas pour une conne, je t'ai jamais prise pour une conne.
Dégage ici. Tu dégages. Sors de ma vie.
This movie shattered me the first time I saw it. Now, yes, a lot was made at the time of the graphic depictions of sexuality between two women, but that's not why I love this film. The depiction of despite the fact that it's the story between two women, the portrayal of love and longing and relationships and what happens when those relationships come to an end is one of the most realistic and devastating portrayals of young love that I've ever seen. And the film, what I really loved about the film is there's not a lot of wide or medium shots in the movie. Much of the movie is close-ups of faces. And I'm a big fan of that. And it's almost like, in a way, making a whole film of people's just close-ups. I don't know if I'd ever have the balls to do something like that, but this movie kills me. And it's 3 hours long. It's also on Criterion Blu-ray, and it's based on a graphic novel. But it is so raw and honest and real, and it is so sad, and yet it's also exuberant at the same time. And it's not depressing, but it's incredibly heartfelt, and it's a crushing story to watch, and you get so wrapped up in the emotions of it all. And yes, it's in French, I know, but it is definitely one of my favorite movies of the year, of the decade. I keep saying of the year, of the decade. It is such a beautiful, beautiful movie. And yes, it is sexually explicit, and, in a good way. But it really is more about, again, it's French, so it's about the reality of relationships between human beings. And man, it's just an incredible, incredible film, and I get so swept up in it every time I see it, and it's really it will affect you. It will affect you. So, Rob, Mads if Jada said, Rob, I meant you removed your miniature for John's show. Okay, now I understand what you mean. So, let me explain. In A Clockwork Orange, Alex DeLarge uses a sculpture of what looks like a big cock and balls to murder a woman. Well, it's not. It's a woman's ass that turns into a penis. And it was an actual sculpture made by a man named Herman Mechanik that Stanley Kubrick found in a gallery in London and used it in Clockwork Orange, licensed it and used it in Clockwork Orange. And my Alex behind my head has that. It came, the figure came with it. And I had it. And yes, I thought, I didn't want John's show to have a problem or somebody complaining in this day and age, not knowing what it is, because people with their hair trigger, people are quick to anger these days. So I decided on a show like John's, I would probably take it away, because a lot of people don't know what it is. If you haven't seen, Sean M says, Rob, your channel was blacked out with a message that said copyright infringement for playing the Mad Max trailer. Just saying, uh-oh. Well, that's a bummer. That's too bad. Well, I guess I can't show any more trailers. What a bummer. Rob, the stream was interrupted during Fury Road. Well, okay, then I guess that's too bad. Well, if it was interrupted and they took it out, I guess I can't play Fury Road. Isn't it interesting that only Fury Road was the one that was interrupted? So I won't play any more trailers. But all I'm doing is promoting their films in a documentary format. So I could probably fight it if I wanted to. But, oh well. Ron the Good Boy sent a super chat. Greetings from North Dakota. Greetings from North Dakota, Rob. I recently watched the Lord of the Rings trilogy for the 100th time. For me, they're more than movies, but rather best buddies. I keep them with me through life. Well, you know what's really funny about that, Ron? I feel that I think that our movies, the movies that we watch over and over and over again, are our friends. Like we go back to movies over and over again, like the Godfather movies. You know, we go visit our friends. It was interesting. Penny Lane in Almost Famous, which is one of my favorite movies of all time, especially the uncut one. Penny Lane said that you can always go to the record store and visit your friends. And I've always felt that way about movies. There's movies I go back to again and again and again, and I watch them, and I love them. You know, I think that they're great. And I find myself throughout my life, I've watched them over and over again. Maybe that's one of the reasons I love Star Trek so much. So, yeah, really enjoy that stuff. And to go back and see your favorite movies again, and they grow with you. I mean, Lord of the Rings is going to be 20 years old in 2 years, which is crazy. So yeah, that's amazing. Dancing Dog 60 sent a super chat in and says, thoughts on the old Space 1999 with Martin Landau. Well, it's funny, Dancing Dog 60, that you asked that, because as many people will tell you, one of the things I love as I reach for it is Space 1999. And I have many Eagle transporters in this imagination, in this Robservatory. And as I've told people and showed people not too long ago, this is Brian Johnson, the creator of the Eagle transporter. That is his autograph. And this is a 1612 Eagle transporter. So, yes, I love Space 1999. But I have to tell you, to be honest, the second season of Space 1999, when Fred Freiberger was brought in to Americanize the show more, is a little bit of a rough slog. I really like old school Space 1999. I think that's great. So yes, I love the first season of Space 1999, but I don't love the second season so much, although I do like the 2-part episode, The Bringers of Wonder. Cardinal Sin sends in a super chat and says, Happy New Year, Laser Bob, and to all the Robs are... Wait, and... Bashan? What is that? Happy New Year, Laser Bob. To all the Robs are... Bastion, I don't know what you mean. Bastion, you'll have an... Oh, I don't know. I guess Adventures in 2020, you mean? Bashins? I don't know what that is. What am I missing? Justin Mainville subscribed to the channel just now. And Mads of Jada, I'm sorry again. I did remove that from the show. I feel bad. I feel bad that, yes, indeed, I did remove the rocking machine. I shouldn't have done that, but I had to. I kind of had to. You know, I had to remove it. I just wanted to make sure that, nobody on John's show got offended by in any way, shape, or form with what I had done. So here, I haven't read any letters on this chat. I guess I shouldn't show any more trailers because I don't want to. Maybe I've already done my damage, but I didn't know that. I've shown trailers before and nobody cared, but I guess, hey, maybe with all the new stuff going on with YouTube, we shall see. Here's a letter, and this letter comes from James Patrick Lambert. This is cool. So James Patrick Lambert, he says, 3 things. Dear Rob, 3 things. As an Englishman, and on behalf of all of your British contingent, we all adore you, so I'm almost certain that you wouldn't mind me speaking on their behalf. Just on this, as I'm not at all presumptuous, I would like to officially offer to introduce yourself at least once as the supreme Royster-doister, a la Blackadder's Lord Flashheart. Anybody unfamiliar with the wonderful BBC series Blackadder, please ignore Series 1 and go straight to Series 2 through 4. It is an anthology, so you won't miss anything narratively, and Series 1 is truly and rightfully, in my book, regarded as dreadful and basically a different show. No spoilers. All I shall say are these words, Tom Baker, the 4th Doctor from Doctor Who, and so you don't know the way to France either. I'm afraid we will need to go on survival rations and may need to imbibe our own urine at some stage. Please inform the captain. It'll hit him hard. Oh no, sir, I don't think he'll mind at all. He seems to quite like it. I think he started drinking his even before the water ran out. Brilliant show, which actually becomes very moving amongst the hilarity by the time it tackles the utter madness of the First World War by Series 4. 2. Casanova Frankenstein, I absolutely love your comment on the wonderful community that you have brought together. Although I wish you and the Burnettwork all the success in the world, I almost wish the site couldn't become any bigger. I know this is incredibly selfish of me, and of course, I don't truly feel this way, but it almost reminds me of being a fan of a really brilliant band before they hit the big time. I'm a little young for the Pixies and Echo and the Bunnymen, 2 of my favorite bands, in their early days, but I know that they were both just cult for a while. And, well, just a massive thank you to Bob Burnettwork, the truly amazing moderators. I'm looking at you, Big Jim, and all the rest. The brilliant contributors, especially Miss Willow Yang, who never fails to move me and make me laugh with her super letters. Also, gosh, as Casanova Frankenstein alludes, what a beautiful and kind bunch of people you have brought together, Rob. You old Royster-doister, you. I guess I can call myself a Royster-doister from now on. Best wishes and beautiful new year to all my fellow imagination connoisseurs. In an era of Brexit, it truly warms the heart of a cold and cynical historian like myself. I adore you all, James Patrick Lambert. P.S. Rob, I sincerely doubt this is anywhere near the requisite level, but please feel free to read it out. If it's a slow news day, of course. Well, this old Royster-doister, which I guess I'll have to find out what that means. I've watched a few episodes of Blackadder, but I'm not that familiar with the show, so I couldn't speak to, obviously, what you are alluding to, but I will definitely check it out. I think I'll have to... first of all, what a very nice letter. Thank you very much for doing that, and I really appreciate you saying so and writing in. That's very, very nice of you to say. This next one comes from Brian Stanfors. Hi, Rob. I'm a fan, and I've been watching you for several months. I'm writing today to pose a question which I hope will provoke thoughtful discussion. The question is easy enough. What did you hope to get out of the final 3 Star Wars films? For me, I wanted to see my childhood hero Luke as a Master Jedi. I had dreamed about it for decades. The idea that I wouldn't get to see him throw down as a Master Jedi never occurred to me. It felt like the obvious next step of the story. The first 3 films were about him becoming a Jedi. Why wouldn't you show him being a Master? I know you feel like The Last Jedi showed this, but I feel robbed by how it was executed. I know that I should be better than that, but as someone who invested decades of fan talk and speculation into what made a Jedi Master Luke would look like, what Ryan did with him didn't sit well with me at all. I hoped JJ would give me this scene, even if it was a flashback or a memory, but even this movie failed me. For this reason, I have felt sad about the new trilogy. My 8-year-old loves the new movies, and so maybe I'm just not their target demographic? Anyway, I'm not a cousin humper, and I didn't have problems with Rey, Finn, Rose, or any of the new characters. I just wanted a satisfying ending to Luke's story, and I didn't get it. That said, do you think I will ever get that moment? Maybe on The Mandalorian or other Disney Plus show? I hope so, but I'm not optimistic. Anyway, excited for your thoughts and to hear what you wanted out of this new trilogy. Oh, and no cop-outs. We all know what you thought they might give you, so spill. Well, Brian S., thank you for all you do. Brian, well, I'll tell you something. Here's what I thought when they announced that there was going to become a new, there was going to be a new Star Wars trilogy. I thought it was going to be, okay, once you have defeated evil, how then do good people stop from them becoming themselves evil when they are put into positions of power? Because does not absolute power corrupt absolutely? So what I wanted to see, and we'd seen some of this in the past in other extended universe Star Wars stuff like Dark Empire, the Thrawn trilogy, I just thought, okay, how do you then, how do you bring back the Jedi Order and make sure the same thing doesn't happen again? That the Sith do not rise in your ranks. And obviously, when the Emperor was defeated in Jedi, I'm sure that a lot of everyone else scurried away like cockroaches, but they were still around. And of course, whether the Mortis, the son of Mortis would have been around or somebody would have been around, I thought, and we've seen all through the EU how these things, the extended universe could happen. So that's what I was hoping. That's what I thought was going to happen. And I wanted to see 30 years on, how then, what is the state of the galaxy? And I certainly expected to see Han, Luke, Leia, Chewie, R2, 3PO all working together. You know, and where were they going to be? And certainly there's going to be a bunch of all new young characters, and how does that all work? And what is that? How do you play that out? And I didn't get any of that. And I try and judge things by what we did get. And I frankly find the entire idea of starting off with a bunch of new characters sort of strange to me. Because if you're bringing back Han, Luke, Leia, there is an Lando, R2, 3PO, whatever, there's an expectation within the audience that you're going to see a movie about those characters. Now, I get it. I get it from a standpoint, and I've talked about this a lot before, when you don't have, if Disney bought Star Wars, they need to make new Star Wars. The corporate mandate was, I'm sure, we have to make new Star Wars with new characters because the old Star Wars characters are old. And we have a new audience of people. We have new young people. We have kids coming to Star Wars for the first time. Why would you possibly then build a new trilogy of films after you spent $4 billion on a bunch of older characters? I mean, Han Solo was in his 70s. I mean, Harrison Ford was in his 70s. So I get it. But I thought that they really didn't do a very good job. You needed to pass the torch. But there's unfortunately, at a corporate level, there's not a whole lot of understanding about fandom and how it all works. Hence that report, the state of fandom, and the report I put in the chat the other day. I think it was really problematic for what Disney was trying to do. I think the easy way to have handled all this would be to indeed talk about or make movies about the old guard passing the torch. and you introduce all these new characters, just like the same way that Ben Kenobi, I mean, Luke should have been the Ben Kenobi on a mission. You've got your old character somehow where you're all together or something. But Ben Kenobi was the one that said, hey, man, we got to go to Alderaan. Like, he led that mission. He was the old veteran of foreign wars or whatever. He came in and led that mission and sacrificed himself so Luke Skywalker would learn. I would have much preferred to see something along those lines, but unfortunately that wasn't meant to be, which I thought was a huge missed opportunity. And I still don't understand. Like, Laura Santeca, you're meeting Max von Sydow for 2 minutes. For me, putting Max von Sydow in a role where he's only in the movie for like 2 minutes before he gets executed, I'm like, why is he in the movie? It bothers me. I'm like, you don't go get an actor like Max von Sydow and give him a couple of minutes and then kill him. You don't even know who he is. Who is this guy? You know, and you don't, there's no, like with all J.J. Abrams stuff, he just assumes that you're going to buy into all this. If you're going to have characters, you have to establish your characters. You have to tell us who they are. So I thought the new Star Wars trilogy ultimately, while there is some entertainment value to be had, I think that ultimately it really wasn't a good story because they didn't know what story that they were telling. Sure, it was about Rey's awakening. Not really. I mean, it really wasn't, because they don't establish Rey as a real character. She's an amalgamation of Star Wars characters and other sci-fi trope-ish characters. You can do that. You can have sci-fi tropes, but or characters that are analogous to someone else, but you still have to introduce them as real characters, and not just all of J.J. Abrams' films give us a shorthand that we're supposed to just buy into. And I hate that. I hate that. It works for TV, but not for features. So yeah, that's kind of how I felt about it. Well, since I can't show any more trailers, I guess, because I'll get more copyright strikes, Thomas Bertoldi writes in, and he says, Rob, what is an entire decade of movies? 10 years of film. That's a lot of movies. There were many films over the last 10 years that I personally enjoyed quite a bit. So I thought, why not share my love of some of these films with both you and the amazing community that I have felt very welcomed in recently. This community is truly one of my favorites, and I do love your channel quite a bit. So, about these movies, I personally felt like sharing. There are so many of them, I'm not sure where to begin. How about with a personal favorite of mine, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, the second time in 2 days. Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, which we all know is a Cold War spy thriller starring Gary Oldman. Movies like Baby Driver come to mind, as well as Inception, which was just a visually stunning and one of the best, if not the best movie of that year. But there's just so many amazing movies, and these are just a few that even come to mind. Michael Keaton was Birdman and then played Vulture in Spider-Man. We also got to see a very fitting end to the Harry Potter series with Deathly Hallows and Cried Over Dobby. Kingsman was a spy film like no other that gave us an action spy comedy film that was just as good as James Bond and just as enjoyable. Life of Pi was a truly touching film in its own right, and Dunkirk was yet another visually stunning Nolan film. In a decade, we have witnessed the rise of the entire movie franchise based on our beloved comic heroes in Marvel Comics. We saw a team come together in the Avengers and then fall apart, only to join together at the end of it all in one hell of a beautiful ending to the Infinity Saga. We witnessed a new Star Wars trilogy come into being and then saw the end of the Skywalker saga. We saw Star Wars become huge again. From movies like Rogue One and Solo to The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, and The Rise of Skywalker. We truly loved movies like The Wolf of Wall Street and Django Unchained. Both movies I was going to show trailers for, but I won't. We even saw them try and make the Justice League a thing. But, well, sometimes just building something up for 10 years isn't good enough. But honestly, how could we not love seeing Mad Max Fury Road? It was one hell of a shiny chrome of a good time. Shiny and chrome. Thanks for the awesome show, and I'm glad I could share it with everyone. Well, thank you for that, Thomas. What a great list. Thanks for writing in. I very much appreciate that. Yeah, it was a great year. Let's see. I'll jump back into what I was going to say. Other movies I was going to put up. The Handmaiden, the Korean film The Handmaiden. Dread, Ex Machina, Hell or High Water, The Phantom Thread, Her. All trailers I was going to play. I didn't even get to play Under the Skin, which was on my thumbnail. Midnight in Paris, Woody Allen's Midnight in Paris. I didn't get to play that either. But there you go. But thanks for writing in, Thomas. I really appreciate that. And now this letter comes quickly from Alfred Alfatoni. Alfred says, Dear Robert Burnett, I enjoy your YouTube channel a great deal. I have recently watched The Rise of Skywalker. Something that really stood out to me was that the return of the Emperor and the revelation of a massive fleet was very reminiscent of the Dark Empire comics that Dark Horse put out in the 90s that I read as a teenager. Thoughts, opinions? Have you read the comics? Congratulations on 300 plus episodes. I have read the comics, and I really like the comics. I haven't read Dark Empire really since it came out. But I really liked it, and there were a lot of similarities. Big fleets, those world devastators that would scoop up a planet and use it. That was not good. That I did think that the Dark Empire comics were good, and I think that yes. Again, I've been a proponent of going back and using previously published material and drawing upon it, and then of course crediting the original authors and artists. It seemed like there was a lot of that went on. And according to apparently certain sources, Chris Terrio is very familiar with all of that stuff. And why wouldn't you be? I would think that would be your first stop, that you'd go back and look at something if that was what were to happen. But yes, I definitely think, you're absolutely correct. And of course, Dave Dorman, who's a very good friend of Mike Bodden, they're collaborating on Mike Bodden's Wasted Lands project, which I hope one day would be a project of mine. Dave Dorman painted the covers for the Dark Empire comics, and this letter is on the Burnettwork website, and you can see that indeed we use that on the site. So yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Well, you know what? I think I'm going to end this chat because it's New Year's Eve and I know people want to get out. But I will be back tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. I will be back for New Year's Day. I will be doing a chat. I want to thank you for this quick look, I guess abridged look, at some of my favorite movies of 2010 and onward, the last decade. I have a lot more. I should probably publish like a list on the website or something. But there's just so many. There's so many great movies that came out in the last 10 years. And we all know what a lot of them are. But I really want to thank everybody for tuning in and watching this. It was fun. Too bad I got copyright strikes to play trailers. I guess you can't do that. I'll take my monetization off or something. But anyway, thanks for bearing with me there. And I'm getting better at this Wirecast business, which is a lot of fun. I enjoy, of course, everybody knows that I really enjoy being here in the Robservatory, surrounded by all of this great stuff that I have. And I will slowly unveil more of it. There's a lot more to the Robservatory over there. And I hope to bring, as I said, more interviews, more interesting commentary and content in the next coming year. It's going to be a lot of fun. And again, I just appreciate all of your continued support. Everybody's been so generous, and thank you very much for that. And I'll bring more great content to you in the next year with, I hope, a lot more diverse stuff. And we'll see. I can't wait to do an interview actually in here. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And I also want to thank, of course, I've had the greatest moderation staff on YouTube. And I know I say it, but Louis Yu and Jordy Lyons and Greg Smith and Mike Bodden and, of course, Detective Jim and the former Sheriff of Nottingham, although he's still the Sheriff of Nottingham, Terry, who's out there, who was also a moderator for a long time. I want to thank all of you gentlemen from the bottom of my heart for making this community what it is. I keep getting, as you heard today, many people are always writing in about the moderation and how much they love. So this channel, because of that, you guys keep everybody on the straight and narrow, which is good. And I very much appreciate that. And thank you for the year that was. I can't believe 2019 is over. I also once again want to thank Lucky Tiger Men's Grooming Products for sponsoring this channel for the year. It has been great fun having you. I love your products. I will always look back fondly on your sponsorship of this channel. Thank you very much for doing so. And it has been great. But most of all, again, I want to thank all of you for supporting the channel and all of that. And for the last time this year, remember, every person you meet, say it with me now, has a story to tell you. Wait a second, I have to get to where I need to go. Every person you meet has a story to tell you have yet to hear. All you have to do is listen. And with that, Robservations, the show about something, brings 2019 to a close. We started our new second season. I'm very happy to be here with you. I hope to bring you a lot more great content in the coming year. And I wish you and yours a happy birthday, a happy new year, a happy everything. Why did I say happy birthday? I guess we're all 1 year older, the planet, Western civilization, whatever. It's a new year. And everybody be safe. And I will just sign off and say, Happy New Year. And as always, have a better day.